35, one of the worst Gator defensive performances maybe ever. Statistically, I think it was the worst they've ever had. And where do we go from here? Florida's got 2 games left. Missouri, who's very good, and Florida State, who's ridiculous, and they got to find a way to win one of them to get bowl eligible. With all that as a positive backdrop, I guess, Andrew Spivey, our guy over in Gainesville, GatorCountry.com, always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL. Andrew, I think I summed it up pretty good, man. The natives are restless, and quite frankly, they have reason to be.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could throw in our Falcons, and my Falcons, and your Jaguars, and we could all have just this celebratory party over here. I don't know if all three teams put together their offenses and defenses, you could have a national champion or Super Bowl.
Andrew, the Gator defense we knew was not going to be good coming into the year, but good gracious, man. I watched Gator football when I was, 5 years old, so going back 35 years. I don't know if I've ever seen a Gator defense that's this bad right now. They are terrible.
Well, I think to sum it up best, 132 teams are in college football, I believe, and Florida's 126th in yards per play. They're averaging 6.6 yards per play given up on defense. That doesn't take a rocket science to understand that two of those gives you a first down, and a couple of those get you in scoring position. So it just is, it's really bad. And I understand Billy Napier, and I understand his comments that Florida's one of the youngest teams in the country, and they're playing young guys everywhere. My question becomes this, and that is, what's wrong with your coaching then? Why is these guys not improving? These are young guys. They're in game 10. Urban Meyer used to say it. Nick Saban used to say it. After you lose your red shirt, you're no longer considered a rookie. I mean, you've had the experience. I mean, this is game 10, and you're still allowing things like this. You're still not tackling. You're still, having bad angles. You're still not getting lined up at times. At some point you have to say, forget the young, of this team. 701 yards. That's ridiculous. And you can't just use the youth standpoint either. Jalen Kimber and Jason Marshall are your two corners. Both of those guys are veterans and getting beat and not making plays. Your linebacker core is a older group. They're not making plays. This is a team that lacks a fight, I guess the best way to say it, on defense, and it lacks just that toughness and want to at times, and it's sad because Jaden Daniels at times was running, and it looked like the defense had just stopped and was taking in the party of, hey, this might be the Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah, Jason Marshall, there's video of him not giving a great effort on one of those touchdown runs. No question about it. Andrew Spivey, GatorCountry.com, here with us on 1010XL. Andrew, look, you and I talked in the offseason. 5-5, I don't think is real surprising. I said before the year I would take 7-5 in a heartbeat. The problem has been the last couple of games. They did not belong on the field with Georgia. Arkansas comes into Florida and wins, and then just absolutely gets boat raced at home by Auburn, and then you allow 700 yards to LSU. They're not getting better. They're getting worse, and that's one of the three things I talked about. I think you and I talked about at the beginning of the year. Show improvement. You're going to play young guys. Keep the recruiting class intact. We'll get to the recruiting class aspect of this in a moment, but Andrew, clearly right now they are not showing improvement.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think you and I talked about it, and definitely after the Utah game, where we said that they just need to show improvement week in and week out. They did. They showed improvement from week 1 to week 3 when they beat Tennessee, and then from there it's kind of been a steady decline. And even the South Carolina game, that wasn't pretty. And you look at this team, and you look at 5-5, and again, most people would have took 5-5. Well, I know not 5-5 right now. Most people would have took 6-4 right now, because most people expected 6-6, kind of where that was going to be, getting into a bowl game. But again, the 5-5 is not even so much the big deal. It's how you've lost. The Kentucky game, just absolutely getting pummeled. From the get go there. The Arkansas game, where Arkansas doesn't even belong on the same field as SEC football teams, and you lose. And then Jayden Daniels putting up 701 yards. It was 17-14 at halftime, and you somehow lose 52-35. That just doesn't work. That's not showing improvement. And then if you're a fan who doesn't see the day-to-day operations, all you see is the bottom line at the end of the day. And this is a team that's not getting better. And at the end of the day, you're going to look like at this end of the season you're going to be 5-7. You're going to lose in the season on a losing streak of 4 games and getting blown out in those 4 games probably.
Andrew Spivey, GatorCountry.com. All right, let's look big picture. Let's begin with the recruiting. You do a terrific job covering recruiting for Gator Country. You've done it for years. One of the things was, can Florida survive a bad year and keep this class intact? They were doing great with that up until about the last 72 hours. They've had a couple of people leave. There are rumored to be more people leaving. Is this class falling apart?
Short answer is yes. You lose Jamonte Waller to Auburn on Saturday during the game. You lose Wardell Mack to Texas on Sunday. Amarius Williams is trending to Ohio State. Nazir Johnson is trending to Georgia. Those guys were on those campuses this past weekend. The recent commit, LJ McCray out of Daytona Mainland, was at FSU this past weekend. Your guys are visiting elsewhere, and right now the opposing coaches have all the ammo. You're on a team that's not getting better, and again, they're going to turn the tape on and say, hey, they're not developing those young guys. That's going to be a problem to kind of counteract if you're Florida's coaches. And that was the light at the end of the tunnel for this team. Was they were about to get a top 5 recruiting class that had a lot of guys that were going to come in and play early, and now that class is falling apart. And this is not to say that some of these guys that may come in and fill these spots are bad players or anything else. They're going to be playing B guys, but they're not going to be day one guys. They're not going to be day one starters like a Jamonte Waller, like an Amarius Williams if he possibly flips. Those guys were going to be guys that were going to come in and play from day one and be instant impact guys. You're not going to just find those anywhere on the streets anymore. Those guys are taken, and they're committed elsewhere, and that's a big problem because Billy Napier doesn't hit the transfer portal very well. So you need some of these high school kids to hit big, and it looks like those big hits are starting to trend away.
2 of the Gators' biggest recruits are from the state of Texas. A&M just came open with the Jimbo Fisher departure. Now, we have absolutely no idea, Andrew, who A&M's going to hire, but whoever they hire, could Florida potentially be in any danger of losing guys to A&M based on the new coach here in the 11th hour?
Yeah, I mean, Xavier, the safety from out there in McKinney, he's a guy who has a lot of family in Orlando. I don't see much there, especially with A&M. That Texas concerns me a little more than A&M does. He seems very solid. DJ Lagway's been solid. I mean, he's been a very vocal leader of this class, has been recruiting for this class. He's given zero indication that he's going to go anywhere else. But, you have to expect that whoever gets that A&M job, their first call has got to be to DJ Lagway, a guy who's right down the street from their campus, and a guy who's, visited A&M a lot. They're going to definitely call. The question for Florida now becomes is, how big of a relationship have you got with DJ, which is very good. Can you show promise to him to keep him? But A&M's definitely going to come in and try their hardest with him. DJ Lagway's the guy that they absolutely cannot afford to lose. For me, that's the guy, if he leaves the class, then it's time to really, start the bus on, okay, is Billy Napier the guy?
Well, and to that point, again, final moments, Andrew Spivey, GatorCountry.com. Let's assume they lose to Missouri and to Florida State, which I don't think I'm breaking any news there. They're going to be big underdogs to both. And they finished 5-7, a game worse than they were last year at 6-6. Is there a scenario where Billy Napier does not come back in 2024, in your opinion?
Right now, I don't think so. I think that he will survive and come back next year with changes. Um, it's one of those weird situations, Ryan, where I think he comes back, but he comes back with the kind of overlying fire over his head a little bit of you better get better. And my question becomes this, and that is, do you think 24 is going to be better? And then do you really that whole coming back with a fire over your head, it gets really crazy, because then coaches are not able to recruit the best in the world because other coaches are saying, hey, are you really going to play for this coaching staff or not? So it becomes crazy. Overall, I do think Billy Napier is the coach in 2024 for the Gators. I just think he has a whole different coaching staff around him. Not firing everybody, but I think he definitely has an offensive coordinator. Some defensive changes are made, and some offensive changes are made as well.
Special teams, I mean, that's got to be addressed, obviously. You mentioned an OC. And here's my thing, too, about the 2024 season, not to get too far ahead, but that schedule next year might be the toughest in college football. They play 11 Power 5 teams. You have the 8 SEC games, along with Miami, Central Florida, and Florida State. I mean, it is unbelievable how hard that schedule is next year.
Absolutely. And, again, Graham Mertz, let's say he comes back and is able to, start and give DJ time. At the end of the day, next year's team will depend on how Billy Napier and this coaching staff hit the transfer portal. They have got to hit the transfer portal hard. Mike Norvell is the walking spokesperson for the portal. If you hit the portal well, you can get your team rebuilt quick. This team needs to hit the transfer portal. They need 5 offensive linemen in the transfer portal. They need some defensive linemen in the transfer portal. They need linebackers in the transfer portal. They need playmakers. They have to hit the transfer portal harder than they've ever hit, harder than any other school in America, if they're going to improve next year. And again, if you find a way to sneak out 7 wins next year, Billy Napier deserves to come back the following year. Next year is not easy by any shape or form. I think that you have to kind of take that into consideration, when you judge Billy Napier for next year. And again, as sad as it is to say it, for the University of Florida, I think even next year you don't judge it so much by the record. You judge it by, did they improve? And that's very sad to say for a program like the University of Florida, that you're not judging it by championships or wins and losses. You're judging it by improvement.
Final moments, Andrew Spivey, GatorCountry.com. They go to Missouri. They play Florida State. Do they have a shot in either one of those games?
I don't think they have much of a shot in Missouri. They don't play well in Columbia. They never have. It's going to be cold. Missouri's really, really good. Luther Burden will probably catch 300 yards of receiving yards against Jason Marshall. Who knows with that. Florida State's, it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen in that game in the Swamp. That one, I think, probably more so than Missouri, as crazy as it sounds, has a chance for Florida just because it's a rivalry game. I'm expecting double-digit losses in both games. This defense has shown me that they can't stop anybody. It doesn't matter how good your offense is. If you give up 52 points at 700 yards, you're going to lose every game you play.
Final moments, because I want to quickly at the very end talk basketball, because I was very interested in watching that game against Virginia last Friday. Defensive changes on the coaching staff. Austin Armstrong, he'll be back in 24, correct?
Yes.
Corey Raymond, and I mean, you got to do something on defense, right? Your job is to stop the opposing team. They're not doing it. Is there going to be a fall guy on that defensive staff?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Corey Raymond's not the GOAT at Florida. And, that's just kind of where it is. His defensive backs have not played very well. Jay Bateman's linebacker group is probably the worst linebacker group in the SEC. I think those 2 guys are probably 2 guys that you have to look at. I do think Sean Spencer, on the defensive line their play has been pretty good at times. I think Raymond and Bateman are 2 guys that you have to look at and say, maybe you have to cut ties. And that sucks to say, because Corey Raymond has been such a great defensive back coach, but it just hasn't translated at the University of Florida.
There's no doubt about that. We got 60 seconds. Andrew, to basketball. They lost to Virginia, but I got to tell you, they're big, they're long, they haven't played with one another for a while because, I mean, all these guys are transfers. But when they start building some chemistry, Todd Golden may have something. I was kind of impressed on Friday night.
Thought you were going to ask me about Shaq's daughter committing to the women's basketball team.
That was a big story, too, no question about it.
That was, yeah, absolutely. I think that this team for Todd Golden has a chance to be really, really good. I think the same can be said for the football team. How do they continue to gel as a unit? Like you said, they haven't played together now, but for 2 games. But I think they're a very good inside to out team. Riley Kugel is really, really good, and then inside they're able to play really good defense, and they're also able to get some boards and really go inside for some points. I think this is a team that really is deep, and they're going to get deeper when they get everybody back. And I think that they're a team that's going to continue to gel, and they're going to make some noise. I mean, that's a good Virginia team that they, had a chance to beat. And I think if you see them later in the year, Florida beats Virginia.
Yeah, Gator fans won't know any of these guys except Kugel and Richard because they all are brand new, but you'll have to learn on the fly. But they appear to be very, very good out of the gate here under Todd Golden. Andrew Spivey, he's always very good to us here on 1010XL. He's with GatorCountry.com. Andrew, appreciate it, man. Signing day is not that far away. We'll be dialing your phone. Hopefully this class doesn't get eviscerated. Does not look good right now. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks. Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ryan.
Now, today's takeaways, brought to you by Key Buick GMC, where our family dealership has been helping families buy vehicles for over 50 years.
And thank you to Andrew Spivey, GatorCountry.com, for joining us tonight here on Hacker After Dark. As, interesting times for the University of Florida. Another loss on Saturday to LSU and a couple of decommitments there for that recruiting class. It's not looking good as the regular season for the Gators winds on down. Big takeaways of the evening, well, obviously the main one is the Jacksonville Jaguars. We are now well over 24 hours removed from the Jaguars, quite frankly, getting embarrassed on their home field yesterday. San Francisco came in here and basically did whatever they wanted, 34-3. And there's 2 ways to look at this, right? You can go, woe is me, and the season could slip away from you pretty quick. Or you say, all right, we got the crap beat out of us. What are we going to do about it? And hopefully the Jaguars take that approach. They have 2 absolutely gigantic AFC South matchups coming up in the next 2 weeks. The first one is right here in Jacksonville on Sunday against the arch rival Tennessee Titans. You got to win that one. You got to beat Tennessee. Tennessee is down on their luck. They're not playing very good. They're 3-6. They are doing a little woe is me in Nashville right now. You got to beat the Titans. And if you do that, that sets up a gigantic matchup, more than likely first place in the division on the line a week from Sunday against the Houston Texans. But first things first, it's all about Tennessee this Sunday and winning a game at home. Good grief. The Jaguars 5-0 outside of Duval County this year, only 1-3 inside Duval County at Everbank Stadium. Hopefully that begins to turn around Sunday against Tennessee. Well, that'll just about do it. It's been a very busy Monday night edition here of Hacker After Dark on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM. We have a lot of people to thank. Again, Andrew Spivey, GatorCountry.com. Florida, 2 games left at Missouri and home against Florida State. We know that Seminole game now will be a night game in the Swamp, 7 o'clock kick the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Florida's going to have to find a way to win one of those 2 games to get bowl eligible as they sit 5-5 on the year. So again, thank you to Andrew Spivey of GatorCountry.com. Thank you to Dave Campo. It's always Monday night coaching with Campo here on Hacker After Dark. The former head coach of the Dallas Cowboys joins us every Monday evening to give his thoughts and his perspective on both the San Francisco game, and we looked ahead to the Titan matchup. And then Brian Sexton, back in hour number 1 from Jaguars.com. Always appreciate Brian taking time out of his schedule to join us here on 1010XL. We'll be back tomorrow night. Are you kidding me? Ladies and gentlemen of Jacksonville, Florida, let me ask you a question. Where else would you rather be from 10 o'clock to midnight on a Tuesday than right here with Dylan Denmark and yours truly on Hacker After Dark? And we do hope you do join us tomorrow night for our late night program. Dylan Denmark was your producer tonight. Dylan, great job as always. I'm the Hacker Ryan Green. And again, Jacksonville, thank you for spending part of your Monday evening with us right here on Hacker After Dark on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM. So for all of us here on HAD, have an absolutely terrific remainder of your Monday evening, and we will do